Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Gusto Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for July 2023. I always love the Gustos. They're one of my favorite archetypes from the Hidden Arsenal or Dual Terminal storyline. The deck focuses on being able to get out a bunch of different Gusto Synchro monsters and then being able to utilize the destruction capabilities of your main deck Gusto monsters to be able to repeatedly special summon them out onto the field, and then using cards like Gusto Freeze, so whatever battle damage you would take will be inflicted to your opponent instead. So just being able to swing with multiple of your Gusto monsters into those monsters to then have your opponent take all the damage that you would have taken for you to result in a game. I'm always changing the deck and updating it with some of the ratios and numbers that I would run for it, so very happy with the results from this update. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck. For our 3-ofs for the Gusto monsters, I run 3 copies of Pilica, Descendant of Gusto. When it's normal or special summon, you can target one Wind Tuner monster in your graveyard, special summon that target in face-up defense position. Its effects are negated, and if activated this effect, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except for wind monsters. You can only use this effect of Pilica once per turn, but it's the perfect target for emergency teleport, because then you can just summon Pilica onto the field, and as long as you have that other Gusto monster in the graveyard, you can special summon it onto the field, and then depending on which one it was, if it was like, let's say, our new Gusto Vidir, or the newest Gusto we have, you can use that monster along with your Pilica of Gusto to then be able to summon out a level 6 Gusto Freeze onto the field for you to use. Along with the 3 Pilica, we are also running 3 copies of Gusto Vidir. If a face-up Gusto monster on the field is destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send one Gusto monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then you can special summon one Gusto monster from your hand. You can only use each effect of Vidir once per turn. So with this monster, when it's special or normal summon, being able to send a Gusto monster from your deck can also set up the Pilica you may have in your hand, being able to summon this card and then have the target in the graveyard for you to summon off of the Pilica thanks to your Gusto Vidir on the field. We're also running 3 copies of Gusto Gall. Now, the big thing with these monsters is you have to have a lot of them. So one is destroy, you get another special summon, to always have those resources to sort of cycle into one another. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one non-tuner level 4 or lower Gusto monster from your deck. So the non-tuner option comes in the form of some of the other Gusto monsters we run, but being able to summon a Gall off of our next Gusto as well, which is our Gusto Guldo, means we have our setup when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard to special summon a level 2 or lower Gusto monster from your deck. So this can get you your Gusto Gall onto the field, and then Gusto Gall can summon out the level 4 or lower non-tuner Gusto. So then you can summon out cards like Pilica off of the Gall, or even our next go-to level 4 lower non-tuner, which is Gusto Griffin, which we're also running 3 copies of. If this card is sent from the hand to your graveyard, you can special summon one Gusto monster from your deck. You can use the effect of Gusto Griffin once per turn. So it's the one sent from the hand effect that definitely does help with some of our other plays, including our setup with our the Wind Chandler, for us being able to discard it and then get an additional search thanks to our Gusto Griffin, and then just being able to have more of a setup play as well for that monster on the field with some of the other cards we run for that sent play, and being a level 2 monster to adjust with some of the tuner monsters to go into other plays also that we have. For some of the lower numbers for the Gusto monsters, 1 copy of Wynn, the Priestess of Gusto, and 1 Cam, Serenity of Gusto. Cam is a once per turn return 2 Gustos from your graveyard to the deck to draw 1 card, so it's recycle power for some of the other Gustos we have. And then Winda, Priestess of Gusto, when it's destroyed by battle with an opponent's attacking monster and sent to the graveyard to special summon a Gusto tuner from your deck. So you can use your Winda to then summon out Guldo onto the field. Guldo can summon out your Gall, and then you can use the Gall to summon out the other mentioned Gusto monsters, continuing that chain, so your opponent will have to attack into a good variety of monsters we have on the field for them to at least clear out your monster board to begin with. And then also the 3 copies of the Wind Chandler. You can discard this card and one other Wind monster to add 1 Wind monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand, except for the Wind Chandler. Also, you cannot activate monster effects for the rest of this turn except for Wind monsters, and when a Wind monster you control is destroyed by battle while this card's in your hand, you can special summon this card. You can only use each effect of the Wind Chandler once per turn, but the discard is very, very useful with the Gusto Griffin, as I said before, because then you can use Gusto Griffin with your the Wind Chandler to send to the graveyard to get your search for Win, and then Gusto Griffin, if it was sent from the hand to the graveyard, to special summon a Gusto monster from your deck. And since it has the if option there. It can choose the chain link time, so you won't miss the timing off of the special summon of a Gusto monster from your deck, and you're not limited to what you can summon off of Griffin also thanks to this. With the last of our win monsters that we run in the deck being the one copy of Tempest Dragon, Ruler of Storms. Now, I thought of running the Wind Witch engine. I'm not the biggest fan because it's just the synchro engine for some of the higher level synchros, which the Gusto monsters, including Pilica, can easily accomplish for the level 6 plays. Tempest just gives you a level 7 monster to use, so if you use your Guldo with a special summon Tempest out onto the field, a level 10 synchro can be made to get out some of our bigger boss monsters like our Baron de Fleur onto the field. But then also, if you wanted to run the Wind Witch engine, you can take out the Tempest and the next lineup of monsters, which are the 2 Jizukiru and the 2 Radiant for the special summon plays for the Wind Witch monsters, giving you the 2 tuners and the 3 ice spells needed for your Wind Witch lineup. But I really do like the Kaijus, because if your opponent has a big boss monster on the field that can stop your initial Gusto setup, you can tribute out your opponent's monster for the Kaiju, and then once you get your Gusto synchro monster onto the field, you can have your lower attack Gusto monsters just swing into your opponent's Kaiju they have on the field, and they'll take immense amount of damage since they'll just be crashing into the monster that you set up in attack position for them to swing into. And then if your opponent had a monster in defense, they can't really do the same because the Gusto monsters won't destroy themselves after swinging into a defense position monster. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. There are 3 copies of Emergency Teleport. Just another easy special summon for our Psychic monsters we run on the deck. The main one being Pilica, just being able to summon this card on the field. Not taking up our normal summon, but still having the special summon play for Pilica to get a monster out of the graveyard for us to use. And I also run the 3 creature swap. Now, depending on what monster you swap with your opponent, you could get one of their monsters and then still have the destruction play of your own Gusto monsters when they destroy it. So let's say you summon out a Guldo out into your field, and it's your only monster with that play. Your opponent chooses the Guldo, you choose one of your opponent's monsters, you swap them, then you use your opponent's monster to swing into the Guldo, destroying it, sending it to your graveyard, and then you'll get a special summon of a Gusto monster onto your field while still getting to keep your opponent's monster. And I also run 3 copies of Tailwind of Gusto, equip only to a Gusto monster. The equipped monster cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Tailwind of Gusto once per turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard and discard 1 wind monster to add 1 Gusto spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You can only activate this effect based on the level or rank of the equipped monster. If it's a level 4 or lower, special summon 1 Gusto monster from your deck with a different type than the equipped monster. So if you have a Psychic monster, then you can go for your Winged Beast type monsters. And if it's level 5 or higher, you can special summon 1 level 1 tuner from your deck, giving you the summon of your Gusto Agal for the added play, being able to activate depending on the level or rank of the equipped monster that is on to begin with, but also having a search for some of the other Gusto spells we run in the deck, including the 1 copy of Contact with Gusto. It's being more of a destruction of your opponent's card, and then also being able to bounce a card with Quillpin of Guldos for the additional shuffle back. It's not a Gusto card, but still a great way to at least recycle our win monsters as well, with our main search being able to have that play for our Gusto monsters as well, and then having the banish add for our deck to our hand means we can also search out Tailwind of Gusto off of its own banish if need be. And then the 1 Miracle Synchro Fusion. I'm a real big fan of the Ultimate Axon Kicker Fusion play, just an immense boss monster that we can make use with Miracle Synchro Fusion for the Psychic monsters, including the Synchros, in our graveyard to banish for it. And then also 1 Foolish Burial, the 1 Monster Reborn, and the 1 Harpy Feather Duster, so we can clear our opponent's back row and not have any fear when our Gusto monsters are swinging into them. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 2 copies of Daigusto Freeze. When this card synchro summon, you can target 1 Gusto monster card in your graveyard, add that target to your hand. Your opponent takes any battle damage you have taken from battles involving a face-up Gusto monster, and this card cannot be destroyed by battle. So even if your freeze attacks into your opponent's monsters, they'll still take any of the damage that you would have taken from that attack. And if you got this card out thanks to the special summon of Pilica onto the field, then you'll also be able to have your opponent at least take any of the damage, and then also being able to add back the monster and normal summon onto the field since you use the emergency teleport to summon out Pilika onto the field, and its other effect to go into the tuner needed, and then adding back that other monster to normal summon it. Also 2 copies of Daigusto Laplem Pilika. With this card, you can only special summon Laplem Pilika once per turn. If it's synchro summon, you can special summon 1 Gusto monster from your hand and 1 Gusto monster from your deck, but negate their effects. Then immediately after this effect resolves, special summon, synchro summon 1 Gusto synchro monster using only those 2 monsters. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except for win monsters, so it's another added monster because your opponent cannot target other Gusto synchros you control with card effects, protecting your freeze on the field since it can't be destroyed by battle as well, and now it also can't be targeted with card effects for the plays, so making it very difficult for your opponent to get around this combo to begin with. For the only other Gusto synchro, I run the 1 copy of Guldos. I'm not the biggest fan of Daigusto Gulls. It just destroys set cards. The face-up Guldos plays, being able to target a face-up monster, helps for a lot of different answers we may want to use while being able to shuffle back our Gusto cards. And then also the 1 high-speed Royd Chambara, the 1 Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, the 1 Mistworm, the 1 Stellar Wind Wolfrayet, and the 1 Baron de Fleur for the rest of the synchro monsters that we can summon out in the deck. And for the fusion monsters, the 1 copy of the Ultimate Axon Kicker for the Miracle Synchro Fusion play, just needing to banish a Psychic type Synchro monster and a Psychic type monster. So if you have your Pilika and then just 1 of your Daigusto Synchro monsters, you can just banish both of these from the graveyard to summon out your Ultimate Axon Kicker onto the field. With the immense life point gain, this card cannot be destroyed by card effects, and then the added destruction of also having piercing battle damage against your opponent to use. With our Link monsters being the 1 copy of Win the Wind Charmer, the 1 copy of Great Fly, the 1 Nightmare Unicorn being the only non-win attribute monster I run in the extra deck, but still a great spin back option, and then the 1 Apollosa for the Link 4 being a win monster as well, so we're not locked out of any of our bigger plays when we use the Pilika effect. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, once again, if you have the setup in the graveyard for your Gusto monsters, it all comes down to just what you open up and search for those cards as well. So with the play of your Gusto monster, whether it be the special summon, so you can go for the play of your Pilika from your hand as well, or if you have the setup of a Gusto monster in your graveyard to begin with, so let's say with Gusto Vidir, if a face-up Gusto monster in the field is destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand, or just with the normal or special summon, you can then send 1 Gusto monster from your deck to the graveyard to special summon a Gusto monster from your hand as well. So with this play, you have the destroyed or sent to your graveyard. If a face-up Gusto monster is sent, you can either go for the normal summon of your Vidir onto the field, then activate its effect to send a Gusto from your deck to the graveyard. So you can send off of the Vidir your go-to Gusto Guldo to the graveyard, and then if you have the Pilika in your hand, special summon out the Pilika. Pilika will then activate to summon out the Gusto Guldo onto the field, which then remember also to special summon it onto the field thanks to Pilika. And with this card, that target in face-up defense, so it will negate its effects and it will be in defense. That's why you want the Vidir in attack position. You can then use the 2 monsters for your synchro play. You will then summon out your Laplem Pilika onto the field, and then with this card, when it is synchro summoned, special summon 1 Gusto monster from your hand and 1 monster from your deck, but negate its effects. Then immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon 1 Gusto synchro monster. So then you just need the additional monster for the play from your hand along with it. So depending on which one you have from your hand will determine what you summon out from the deck as well. So if you go for the same setup, if you have the Vidir in hand or just the summon of your one from your hand onto the field, you can then get the additional monster from your deck as well for the synchro play, or you can go for the additional tuner as well. But the main play will revolve around the Vidir and then the Pilika from hand, or vice versa if you have the multiple numbers, because once again it comes down to if you got the Pilika onto the field from emergency teleport as well from before, or with the Vidir setup, then you can go for the level 6 synchro play, being able to summon out your Daigusto freeze onto the field, and then you have your Laplem Pilika protecting your freeze on the field on top of your other monster being able to swing into your opponent and any of their other monsters taking any of the battle damage, since your Gusto monster can't be destroyed by battle with freeze, but with Vidir, when it's destroyed, your opponent will take any of the damage that you would have taken to begin with. But the bigger play also revolves around if you go for the the graveyard setup. Let's say you already have the card set up in the graveyard. If you go for the Wind Chandler play and you have your Gusto Griffin, you can send both to the graveyard for the search, adding your Pilica, Descendant of Gusto, to your hand off of that play. The Gusto Griffin will then activate to special summon a Gusto monster from your deck. So then you can summon out your Gusto Vidir thanks to this card, and then use Vidir to send the same play we mentioned before, being the Guldo to the graveyard, special summoning the Pilica from your hand, and then your Guldo will special summon back off the Pilica. You can then use the 2 for the Synchro play for your Lapland Pilica, or you can even just go for the freeze with this play if you have no fear what your opponent may have. Then use the freeze to add back the Guldo to your hand. You just sent off the Griffin and the Wind Chandler, so you haven't normal summoned yet. So you can normal summon out the Guldo and then have the swing into your opponent, destroying the Guldo, and then being able to get out the level 2 or lower Gusto monster, so it could be your Agal, swinging with that one as well, and then having the special summon for one more Gusto monster off of the Agal to swing for some heavy massive damage on top of the Vidir as well. All the more powerful if you gave your opponent a Kaiju for you to swing into, because then with these 4 monsters that you swung into, if it's your go-to for the Jizukiru, that could be enough for game right then and there after these 4 attack, and then swinging with Daigusto Freeze as well. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. It's a really awesome deck, and like I said, Gustos are one of my favorite from the Dual Terminal storyline, so I hope you all enjoyed it as well. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.